Okay, everything is running. Sample data set is successfully loaded, so on. Let's tackle MongoDB Compass first. So I assume that you can find and download MongoDB Compass. The link will be provided and whatnot. But if it's set up, or if you have used it already to connect to your own local database, now we need to figure out a way to connect to this cloud database here. All right, so let's open up MongoDB Compass. And this is my local connection. So I'm gonna have a new connection. I'm gonna add a new connection, and it wants a connection URI and the connection string essentially. And where do we get that? They have a tendency to move things around as they improve on things. For now, it's in our main clusters view, connect. Now, this is going to ask you a couple of things. What are you using to connect? Are you using drivers, Compass, shell? We can do shell later. MongoDB for VS Code? Nope. Drivers, what are you using? Node.js? Well, we can use that later, but for now, let's do MongoDB Compass. So Compass, all right, I have MongoDB Compass installed. If you don't have MongoDB Compass installed, they now have nice instructions for this, supporting pretty much most of these things. So yeah, Mac, Windows, Linux, and whatnot. So I have MongoDB Compass installed. Okie dokie. So now we have a connection string. This is basically an address, kind of like let's kind of like decrypt what this actually means. And we have something like MongoDB plus SRV. You might notice that whenever we type in something like HTTP, FTP, if you ever used it and whatnot. So this seems familiar, right? So it's not exactly like HTTP because these HTTP, FTP are protocols. And this is like a URI scheme. It essentially describes to the program how to connect to a MongoDB server. Here we have the username, right, which we're creating. Here we're supposed to have a password. We don't have the password, but this is why we copied down that password, remember? And here we have test cluster, seems familiar, right? Test cluster. And here we have a bunch of other things where basically MongoDB essentially says it's a MongoDB managed domain. So like something like AWS, something .NET and whatnot. It's just part of the domain name. So we're going to be telling MongoDB Atlas, Compass. Sorry, Atlas is here. Compass is what we're going to be using. That's on our own computer. Where to go to? Okay, so let's copy that in. Where to go now? There we go. Compass, right? And I have a pretty recent version. If you installed it recently, you're going to select 1.38 or later. We'll copy that in, okay? And we will go back to Compass. Where is Compass on my mess of a toolbar? And we paste that in here. And now I actually need the database password. Wherever I copy and pasted that part. And there it is. And we'll put that in here. So you see this like caret database password. Maybe I'll make this bigger, right? We need to remove that caret. Pointy arrow left, pointy arrow right, and database password. But we need to keep the colon here. And we'll paste in the database password, which we got during the initial user creation. So let's do that. Generally, this is something you don't want to publicized to the world, because then anybody can connect to your database. Have fun connecting to my movies one. It's probably going to be deleted later anyway. And now we should get connected to test cluster. Look, it figured out where we want to go. And we go into here, right? And now we are within MongoDB Compass, which is installed on our computer. We can open up sample mflix. We can open up movies, we can do queries and whatnot. Apparently you need to buy their premium version to generate queries, but we're not going to do that. Let's do some sort of a query. Can explain queries. I don't use Compass a lot, but let's do title Titanic. We have Titanic somewhere, right? Find one of two. Yeah, there you go. Title Titanic. Another Titanic. So why are there two Titanics? Because this one is a 1996 release, and this one is what, the director's cut or something like that release? Probably. So this one was released in 1996, and this one was... or this is the series. Anyway, so it matched everything that, you know, that Titanic, title Titanic matches. Can we do Star Wars? Title Star Wars. Fine, no results. Why? Because technically it's not Star Wars, but Revenge of the Sith. Let's find that one. No Revenge of the Sith. Interesting. What are the titles in the IMDb movie database for that one? No love for the prequels? New Hope? Let's find that. Maybe we have to have like the full title. So how about we scrap that for now? We'll reset that movie. So what we can do, we can search by directors, right? Okay, directors. It expects an array of any one or more directors. So let's do that. We'll do directors, and let's see what George Lucas has been up to. And find it. Okay. So we are getting some other THX. Okay. Yeah. Okay. THX 138. American Graffiti. Yeah. Okay. It expects like the whole thing. But here it is, right? So if we want to go by writers, directors, languages, and so on, so we can now explore the database within our MongoDB Compass, so our GUI on our computer. We can also explore it by using a bare bones Node.js app. So let's take a look on how to do that next. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let's open this up, and this is going to be linked as well as a starter code and whatnot. It's just a bare bones Node.js app. So if you go in here, run npm or yarn install to install all dependencies, and if you just run node program.js, you would connect to this database. Now, but how do we do that, right? How can we do that? Well, let's come back and see what's actually going on. This is just a function that runs this connect to the database, other function, and then we're grabbing movies into the collection and whatnot, but we don't have to. Let's take a look back at db.js. Here, we are using the MongoDB library. We could use Mongoose, which is another one on top of that, but we'll keep it simple. Now, Node will connect. So on your computer, when you run this program, it will try to get this Mongo URI. It'll run this function. It will do it, try and catch, whatnot. Try to connect to the client, and if everything goes well, any queries that you will put in here will run. Now, the best way visually to explore MongoDB Atlas and whatnot is to use the GUI. But no, that's why it's named MongoDB Compass. Compass and Atlas, I guess they work together. What do you know? But to keep it on the basic level, any query that we put in here will also work. So in order to connect, it's actually very similar. Now let's go back to our database, because we need to our MongoDB Atlas cloud database. And that is going to be here. Now we need the connection string once again. So where do we get that? Overview, clusters, connect, right? So connect, what do we want to do? Well, we can either do, drivers, Node.js and whatnot, 6.7 or later. The test code already is going to be pre-packaged, so you don't need to do any of that. All that you need is the connection string once again. So we are going to grab this, and it's pretty much the same, but there are subtle differences here. So we'll take that, copy it, come back here. Let's go back to our small little application. Go to the .env file, and this is where your MongoDB URI goes in here. Let's paste that in here. And now, once again, we require the password. And that will go in here. Alrighty. Nope. That will go in here. Okay. So we have that. So once again, this is the whole string and whatnot. Save that. Make sure that everything is saved. As if you have that, little circle in VS Code, that means you did some changes, but you haven't saved those changes yet. Let's go back here. Let's come back here. Let's go to program.js, and let's actually run it and see what happens and see what's actually going. I should have a terminal window. I do. Let's elicit. Okay. Yarn and npm install. If you haven't done that already, you need all the dependencies, but all good. And then let's do node. And what did I name the program.js? And let's see what happens and kind of like break down exactly what has happened. All right, a bunch of things happened, and the program exited. So we have connected to MongoDB and top-rated movies, and a bunch of other things, whatnot. Okay, let's take a look. Program runs. So run database queries. The first thing that runs is this await connect, which is a promise. I will assume that you know promises already, the concept of promises. So let's go back and let's take a look at what this connect does, right? This will get Mongo client from the MongoDB library. .env is for an env file to work, because even though I'm showing the connection strings here, but we really want to keep them separate, and technically they should not be added to the Git repository, but in this case it is just for your convenience. And here we have the connect function, which is going to take this client, try to connect with this URI which we provided here. and then return client.db. And what is our DB name? Well, it is sample mflix, sample underscore mflix, exactly like it is in our test cluster, wherever it is. Exactly like it is here. If I call it something else, sample movies, it won't find that. It has to be exactly like it is here. Sample underscore mflix, and capitalization counts. And then our program has now the DB, whatnot. And here I'm using a shortcut, so DB collection movies. And so movies.find, IMDb rating greater than 8.0, title, yes, a year, whatnot, IMDb rating, sort, IMDb rating descending, I think, or it is ascending. -1 is descending, or 1 is descending. And only give me the top 5, and yeah, descending, and turn it into an array so I can do something with it in code. So like, let's say we are using React for our front end. Now I can take this array and then do something with this. So like literally I can just show 5 movies in my React application. I can just iterate over them and create 5 components essentially. Now, this, right, looks much scarier than this when we're doing it with Compass, right? Let me make this, right? So it's easier to kind of like type in something here, type in something, get response, type in something, get response, and whatnot. This is the GUI tool for our convenience. So use the GUI tools, learn from them, explore the data, but practice with actually these raw commands essentially, because that's how you get the best understanding. So okay, I will leave you at that. Everything should be set up at this point. You can plug in commands and whatnot in this here. So if I wanted to find, I don't know, let's do a movie where George Lucas is a director. So for that, we'll make a new query and say, well, const Lucas movies is, so we have movies already exposed, right? So we said movies is going to be db collection.movies. What does that mean? That we're going into our mflix or whatever it's called on MongoDB Atlas, sample mflix, and we're going to expose movies as a variable, essentially, as a variable in JavaScript, Node.js in this case, no, JavaScript. So we'll say, okay, await movies dot find, and we'll say what exactly it wants from us. Let's take a look at our data here. Directors is a field, right? Directors, and expects an array, but I think in this case it's going to do that for us, but we'll see. And we want to convert this response to an array. All right, so query all of the Lucas movies, George Lucas movies, George Lucas movies, and let's console log Lucas movies. In order to keep this tidy or so, I'll comment out this part right here, and we'll say, okay, George Lucas movies is Lucas movies, and let's run this again. Let's see what happens. Node program.js connected to the database. Was very quick. And we have a bunch of data, like literally everything. Plot, genres, runtime, everything, where we can filter things out, right? We can filter things out, something like okay, only the ones that have a rating of 7.0 or better. Only give me back the title and the year it was made, and for example the description. So let's do that. Movies.find George Lucas, and I do believe it's what project, and then what do we want? We want the title, so true. We want the year it was made, true. And what we want? Description, and we want that. Okay. All right, movies is fine. Directors George Lucas, something, 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 and to array. Do we want to limit? No, we don't want to limit. We want all of them, essentially. So let's clear this up. Let's run the program. Let's see what happens. And now we have a much neater list in here. So we have title, year, description. Maybe I misqueried this, but at least we have title and year. And it's, well, much better, right? Just, filtering through our results. Yeah. So, and you would say, okay, what do you mean? Like, do I need to like, this seems like a weird way of querying things. Why can't I just ask for exactly what I need? Well, yes, you can. We will see later that there are other libraries on top of this. So this is like very bare bones. Something like Mongoose will allow us to make these a little bit more human readable, so that we don't have to go back to the documentation and be like, okay, I don't know how to essentially query this, and now I feel like I need to solve a mathematical puzzle to query this. But to practice, this is a good place to start to practice. MongoDB Compass is a good place to explore, like the dataset, and the bare bones Node.js application is a good place to practice it. And with that, you should be all set to play around with MongoDB and the cloud database with MongoData on MongoDB Atlas as a database as service. So that's that for now.